So I have a feeling we're gonna see a whole lot of either, you know, I'm gonna give Linux a try for the first time. If you're a gamer though, you're not, you're gonna come back. You really are. Sorry, Linux, we tried. It was okay-ish, but not for the gaming side. It just truly not a gaming platform. It is a nerd tinkering, tweaking. I love playing around with the kernel, just customizing it, but that's the game, not games itself. Anyway.
Well, in this video, we're gonna talk about Linux for gaming and why it's actually a really viable alternative to the end of life of Windows 10. Are you ready? Let's get into it. As always, we're gonna start with a little bit of context. And no, I'm not going to bash against the video of J2Sense, even if maybe I'm gonna do it a little bit. But anyways, do you remember how happy I was when we watched together the first video of J2Sense discovering Linux and installing Bazzite on a spare PC he had? He was so smart about it. He decided to go with AMD, full AMD. If I remember correctly, it was a 7900 XTX, AMD CPU, like the easy way for J2Sense, right? And I was really enthusiastic to see him go through the full Linux experience. But here we are. 3 months after his initial video, he pushed this one, which is like Windows 10 arrive at a dead hand. And what are you gonna do? And you heard it at the beginning of this same video. He believes that Linux is not an alternative for gaming. And let me tell you straight, he is wrong. He is wrong at 100%. Linux is an alternative for gaming, but it's not perfect. And this is what we're going to be talking about in this video. So the first thing I want to do with you guys is go through the kind of like the approach he went through and the mistake he made to make sure that you are not doing the same mistake. And when you transition to Linux, well, guess what? You're going to have a really like nice experience and you won't have expectation about an operating system which are just not true. And we also gonna really talk about that. So what was the overall approach of J2Sense of all those users who are in fact like really disappointed into like transitioning to Linux? Well, I would say that most of the time they go into a new operating system thinking they're gonna have like all the like, you know, bell and whistle of their previous operating system and expect this new operating system to have no negative, like everything runs perfectly, everything is fine. This is not the case, because this is a real, like, I would say, like, important point that everybody needs to understand. Every operating system comes with pros and cons. There is no perfect operating system so far. But the real question is that on your hand, what are the pros you really want to focus on? And what are the cons you're going to be able to deal with? There is some deal breaker out there, and we're going to be talking about them a little bit later on the video, but they are part of the deal. You won't have a perfect operating system, it just does not exist. Now, if you go through the, I would say like the like transition process that Jay's had in this video here, first, he made a video when he discovered how easy it was to install, how easy it was to run game, and I was really enthusiastic about his approach. I knew that when you go into, I would say like the honeymoon phase, a little bit too hard, when the reality hits, it can be hard. But I didn't expect it to be this hard for him. He made this video, which was called like, this was supposed to be the ultimate Windows alternative. And it is. But on his approach, I talk a lot about it in one of my YouTube video here called This is Ant Chief at J2Sense. He made some benchmark and compared Windows to Bazzite. And then his Bazzite installation just exploded for whatever reason. Okay, I don't want to go into that, but he had an issue with it. But the reality of the matter is like his work was not accurate. The way he did the benchmark, the way he went through like his experience is just inaccurate. And it's fine. I have nothing against J2Sense. I'm just talking about this specific task, this specific work, this specific video where he did not do a good job. So at this point, you're going to be like, hey, Air Max, What are you talking about? J2Sense do everything squared all the time. He has 4.6 million subscribers, and you're just a little crouch out there with your 19.6 thousand subscribers. I will say yes. I certainly doesn't have the same impact when I push a video as he do, but what I'm making sure of is that each of my video is accurate to the max. And one of my remarks, I would say, regarding his previous video on the benchmark Windows 11 versus Buzzite was the fact that there was something wrong with his distro. I don't know what he did, but something was wrong in his approach, and I proved it. Yes, I proved it. All of you certainly didn't watch his content because he was on my live stream, and I believe in like all of you doesn't want to watch like 6-hour live stream twice a week. I get it. And I didn't want to make a full video where I explain what he was wrong, but now I feel like I need to, because enough is enough. Like, this is done. I'm done, like, you know, like going around. When something is wrong, it needs to be said. Everybody made mistake. I prove it by just using the same type of hardware on my second PC, because I do own an AMD card, and do the bench myself out of the box without twinkering anything. Just having Windows 11 versus Buzzite, a fresh install of Buzzite, and pushing out some of the results. So what I'm speaking, you're gonna see some of the screenshot I took out for this specific benchmark I did offline, and everything is documented, everything is here. But long story short, the discrepancy he found, which was around like I think like 40 to 50% difference between Windows 11 and Buzzite, is just plain wrong. Okay, I'm gonna say it again. This is not accurate. This is not what is representing the Linux gaming experience. If you don't believe me because for whatever reason you think like my way of benchmarking is not right, etc., etc., all my benchmarks are made live. You can see all the process. You can see my hardware. Everything is transparent. In this benchmark I made here, I decided to focus on 1080p and 1440p. And what I did an analyze between like ray tracing on and ray tracing off, because we know that on Linux, activating ray tracing is pretty detrimental to the performance, but it's nothing compared to the number he provided. So here, if you compare like Cyberpunk at 1080p, you're gonna be between like 4.8 and 4.6% slower on Buzzite versus Windows 11. So in game, your minimum FPS is gonna be 99 versus 104. It's not going to change your game experience, I'm telling you straight away. And on the average, you're gonna be between like 144 FPS to 152 FPS. You're gonna literally lose 7 FPS. Like, come on. Like, this is not that bad. And here in 1440p, the average is even lower, with a difference of like 3 FPS average. The difference between the minimum between Windows 11 and Buzzite is around like 8%. So you're gonna lose 8%, but it's still totally playable. Like, in the grand scheme of theme, you're gonna move between like 106 FPS versus 98 FPS. Whoa. Yep. Yeah, that's the number. So the other game I tried was Marvel Rivals, and here you can see we are within margin of error on the average FPS. And the good news is that's also something I noticed in all my testing on Linux, is that the 1% low, they have like overall like less stutters on Windows. You see on Windows, you have like those dip where you play and at a certain moment, so like you have like a mini freeze. They are characterized by this type of like 1% where you go at like 13 FPS for a certain amount of time. Well, on Linux, this does not exist anymore, right? This is one of the advantage of Linux, the way the kernel handles gaming. You're gonna have the smoothest experience. You're gonna lose FPS overall, but it's not going to be as big as 40% FPS. Again, without ray tracing, the maximum loss we got was on the 1%, and we only lost like 8% FPS. Like, you need to watch those numbers and think different about what some of the main tech tubers are actually saying. Now, when you activate ray tracing, well, you're gonna lose FPS, and it's because the way like Proton, which is the translation layer that transform like the Windows game to Linux game, kind of like to make it simple, it's not ready yet for ray tracing. They have been doing a lot of improvement, but there is still some loss of performance while activating it. The good news is that, again, it's not as bad as you guys may think. So at 1080p, we're gonna lose between like 4% to 8% average. Okay, but you can see again one of those dip in Windows 11 while running the benchmark, like 2 FPS on 1080p with Doom. Well, yes, does not happen with Buzzite or Linux-based system. You lose 10 FPS average, 8%, or you lose 5 FPS average, 5%, depending on the game, but you still have a smoother experience overall. So when I hear, yes, it's not ready to gaming, I'm just losing my mind. This is not true. It is ready to gaming. I just launched this game without using any command, without tweaking the kernel, because actually it's impossible to tweak the kernel on Buzzite because it's an immutable distro. But I digress. Stop. Like, it just, dude, it drives me insane. I won't lie to you. Like, it just drives me insane to hear so much misinformation out there. Now, when it comes to 1440p, you can see the average decrease FPS is actually big. And this is something, as I mentioned earlier in the video, you're gonna have to be willing to digest. Are you into ray tracing? If you are into ray tracing, Linux might not be for you. I'm gonna tell you straight, as it is right now, in late September 2025, ray tracing is not at the level of Windows. But at the end of the day, it's just a 15% decrease. So you are moving from 100 FPS to 85 average, and you are moving from 120 FPS to 106 FPS in 1440p for those two games. And this is what you really need to think about when it comes to gaming on Linux. There is really like 3 big roadblocks that you might hurt when you switch. I would say the first one is related to anti-cheat. Okay, this is what you need to think about for a transition. Are the game I play compatible with the way Linux handle anti-cheat? Linux does not support kernel anti-cheat. It's not working right now. There is maybe a way in the future that will be developed which will support kernel anti-cheat on Linux. It is technically possible. I don't know if it's gonna one day arrive on the market, but as it is right now, you simply can't play certain game. So all the game like Valorant, League of Legends, Call of Duty with the kernel anti-cheat, PUBG, right? And what you really need to understand is that it's not a Linux problem. It's just the developer don't want to push their kernel anti-cheat or work toward any compatibility toward Linux. Okay? It's not only a Linux issue. It's also an editor issue. Those devs, they don't want it. So one of the perfect example was Apex Legends. Apex Legends was working perfectly. Now it's not working anymore because they decided we don't want to support Linux. That's all. I made 3 or 4 videos about it, explaining what could be the cause, what could be the reason. But again, I'm not a dev at Electronic Arts. I don't really know what was their real thinking behind the scene, was they decided to cut totally the support of Apex Legends. But guys, it was working. I have like 100 of stream on this channel of me playing on Linux Apex Legends, and the experience was better than on Windows. It was better. Now, if you are into those games, there is no way you're gonna transition to Linux until it gets fixed. End of story. And this, I can't be, in disagreement with you. You want to play the next Battlefield 6? Well, you're going to need Windows 11, end of story. Now, the second point, which is super important to understand, is the software support. So, if we go beyond gaming, there is a lot of company out there who decided they won't be porting their application to the Linux operating system. Again, I won't talk about the reason behind them, but if you are using, for example, Adobe, the Adobe suite every day for work, and you need it on your PC, well, it's not going to work on Linux. There is some workaround, but they are not viable. It's just too much of a work, too much of a hassle. So this is pushing you away from Linux. From a user perspective, you can say, like, I don't want Linux because of that, and it's fair. Nobody's going to be judging you. We got you. But it's not really a Linux issue either. It's because the editor doesn't want to port the software on the Linux platform. Like, the thing needs to be said as it is. It is not a Linux issue. Okay? So now the third one is related to the hardware you use. There is some hardware which doesn't have any Linux support. And again, you're going to be like, hey, Max, it's Linux fault. No, it's not. It's not Linux fault. It's because the manufacturer of the hardware decide not to port the support for the Linux operating system. Simple as that. I have like a capture card, which are like really good, but guess what? They're not supported on Linux. Avermedia decided that they wanted to create a corporate version of those capture cards. And guess what? Those corporate capture cards, they are compatible with Linux, they have the same chips, they have exactly the same hardware, and they charge like 3 times more. This is what it is. But it's not a Linux issue. Now, I understand your perspective saying like, hey guys, like, I have this hardware, I don't want to change my hardware, I want to just, continue like that. Well, you're going to be stuck on Windows, but it's not a Linux issue. So now, what is the whole point of this video? The whole point of this video, first is not to bash J2Sant. I don't really care. If you want to know more about the whole story behind the scene, I'm going to put a link in the description below. It's like a 2-hour explanation about my whole adventure on the J2Sant Discord. Yeah, if you're into this type of stuff, it's pretty crunchy, I would say. So go watch the video in the link description below. But I think it's not that. I think it's more about understanding what are the pros and cons from moving to Linux to Windows. And I would say, like, most of the time, if you go into it thinking that it's gonna be the perfect experience and you're gonna have everything working perfectly without any, little effort, you're going to be disappointed, guys. You're going to be disappointed. So I see all this feedback from Windows users that just want to turn the page. They want to turn the page for many reasons. Okay, I don't want to go into it, but there is many reasons. You could be like tired of Windows, especially now with Windows 11. You need to buy new hardware, right? Or you need to do some trick to avoid the security, bypass all those stuff. And I'm like, you are willing to do that, right? You are willing to take the hit. You are willing to expose yourself because, some users, they just want to stay on Windows 10 and don't take any security update at the level of the operating system, which is pretty bad, right? They are willing to, do all those stuff, but when it comes to learn a new operating system, no, they are not willing to do that. I'm like, dude, there is no perfect solution. I'm sorry to tell it to you guys, but there is no perfect solution. You're gonna have to choose a direction at a certain point. And my approach would be like, hey, if you want to stay on Windows, just stay on Windows, right? It would be totally unsmart to not play games you want to play just because you decided that Microsoft was evil or whatever. You know what? You still have an alternative. You could have a Windows 11 totally debloated installation on one hard drive just to play the game you want. when you want, you know, your friend, you just reboot, you're there, and all the rest, you could be on Linux. Or if you don't want to do that, you could have a Windows 11 installation only and have some type of like hypervisor running Arch on it. For example, like another like Linux distro, you can do whatever you want. You are the boss, okay? And that will be my overall approach. Like try things, right? Don't listen to some biased YouTube content creator, right? I love Linux, but I like my goal is not to impose it on you. Sometimes I made mistake in my work, it's fine, but I will try to come back with an explanation or an excuse and telling like, hey, I was wrong, right? I have a video coming explaining why I was wrong, for example, about Flatpak. Okay, like a little spoiler here. I was wrong about Flatpak. Not about everything, but I was wrong. So it's fine, everybody is wrong. And this video about J2Cent and his take about Linux not being a gaming platform is totally wrong. There is limitation, exactly like you have limitation on Windows. That's all. Maybe as a gamer you don't see them, but if you become a power user, or if you are a power user, you will see that Windows has a lot of limitation. And it's fine. You choose what you want to choose. But just saying that Linux is not ready for gaming, man, this is the worst take I ever heard for a long time. Think about all those Steam Deck users. Doesn't look like they're complaining about Linux at all, huh? I'm just saying. Anyways, that was my little rant here. I just wanted to share those results. I just wanted to share my perspective around the end of life of Windows 10. Do whatever you want, but really like experience, try Linux, try Windows, keep both, keep none of them, just go live in the wood. I don't know, do whatever you want, you know. I don't have to tell you what you do, but yeah, that's it, that's all. Guys, thank you very much for watching. I'm gonna tell you what to do. Give a thumbs up to this video, leave a comment below, and I want to thank particularly all the supporters of this channel, which are like putting money towards the success of this channel. Guys, thank you very much. You are the best for the support on YouTube and Patreon. Thank you again. And yeah, I see you in the next one. Bisous, bisous.